you very kindly, Mr. Mohammed. Please remain standing for the prayers. We'll have Mr. Charles Castle.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Thank you very kindly. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, Good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Thank you very kindly. General Secretary of the People's National Movement, Mr. Foster Cummings, and let me say that this is the first time I'm saying that on a public platform. First citizen of the City of Port of Spain, Mayor Martinez, members of the City Corporation, members of other councils and regional corporations, members of the leadership of the PNM, former chairman of the PNM, Mr. Franklin Kahn, members of the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago, Vice President of the Senate, members of the House of Representatives, members of the Senate, members of the only true political party in Trinidad and Tobago, members of the People's National Movement. Good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a very long time since the PNM held a public meeting in the capital city. It has been a very long time since the PNM held a public meeting on Frederick Street in the City Hall. The city, the seat of governance, the location of our parliament, the location of the University of Woodford Square, the Hall of Justice, and in the not-too-distant future, a fully refurbished Red House. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our capital city, where major decisions are taken for all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Allow me to begin tonight by thanking all of you who contributed to making our convention in Tobago a resounding success. By having its convention in Tobago, the PNM has demonstrated yet again that it is a party that is a cut above the rest. I repeat, the only true political party in Trinidad and Tobago. The PNM is concerned about Trinidad and Tobago, whether we are in opposition or in government. The same, unfortunately, cannot be said of those who are in opposition to us. I know that you will all agree wholeheartedly when I say that all the major changes and developments that have taken place in this country have occurred when the PNM is in government. It is only the PNM that governs in the best interests of the entire country and in the best interests of all the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. From Charlottesville to Cedros, from Scarborough to Couva, from Lecato to Arima, from Port of Spain to Aruca Maloney, from doctor to lawyer, from policeman to teacher, from infant to centenarian, and every place, profession, and age group in between. The PNM governs for all. Attorney General, Member of Parliament for Port of Spain South. Once the PNM holds the reins of governance, we work in the interests of all. Sadly, the same cannot be said of those who are in opposition to us. In their usual classic case of goalpost shifting, the opposition has repeatedly demonstrated its inability to act in the best interests of the country and in the best interests of all the citizens. They have consistently demonstrated their inability to stick to a commitment. They are wholly unpatriotic. and want to run this country from the opposition benches. We will have none of that. Tonight, from this platform, we will discuss serious matters, from the Attorney General to your beloved MP and the Honorable Prime Minister. We are here to discuss serious matters. You will hear men of power and commitment and a serious and passionate woman. Join me, therefore, in welcoming our first speaker, the one and only, the indomitable, the one who cannot be kept down, your MP for Port of Spain South, Marlene McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mayor of Port of Spain, Mr. Joel Martinez, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, Prime Minister, Deputy Political Leaders, Chairman of the Party, Mr. Coleman Burt, Party Executives, Cabinet colleagues and MPs, Councillors and aldermen present, Chairman and Executive of my constituency, Port of Spain South, all members present here this evening, members of the media, a very good evening to all my PNM family from far and wide, and a special welcome to my constituency, the constituency of Port of Spain South. By way of history, this seat has been held by the PNM from 1956 to 1986, then from 1991 to present. I am so proud to occupy the seat of the father of the nation, the late great Dr. Eric Eustace Williams. And he held the reins of this constituency from 1956 until his death in 1981. My PNM family, my constituents of Port of Spain South, it is always a great pleasure to address you, and I have done so for the past 11 years. Through the good times and the bad times, you have stood side by side with the PNM. So let me seize this opportunity this evening to salute you from Port of Spain East, Picton, Africa, John, Sealots, to Fort George Road, St. James, Woodbrook in the west. My brothers and sisters, my purpose here this evening is to remind you and to share with you the progress that our government has made over the last 3 years in office. I have looked on and listened to all the naysayers and the opposition ridicule and criticize this government. This government has been the subject of harsh scrutiny, and even when good things are happening, it is never reported adequately, and in some instances, never reported at all. My brothers and sisters, when you listen to the other side, they would make you believe that we have done nothing for the past 3 years. But let me point out to you this evening that some people can only talk and talk, and they can add no value to our development. When the former government was voted out in 2015, it was simply because there were grave problems facing us in this country. It was indeed a nation in crisis. We were subjected to a continuing comedy of confusion, of corruption, of inequitable distribution of resources, of nepotism, emanated from those who paraded as government ministers. Do you recall the blunders, the missteps, and the misdemeanors? Do you recall that every step of the way, Dr. Rowley, as opposition leader, pointed out to the citizens the lack of ethics and morality? Dr. Rowley highlighted the lack of leadership in the country. He showed us that ethical behavior required that each minister should act in a respectful manner and display basic moral principles. Do you recall the Emailgate scandal? The Section 34, one of our darkest moments in this country? Prisongate? The use of false resumes to attain jobs in this country? Beating of women in car parks? The failed state of emergency? The live sport debacle? What about the $6.8 million fire truck scandal? My brothers and sisters, you must never forget also their fiscal irresponsibility, their profligate spending, and their disregard for basic norms. The end result of this fiscal irresponsibility was that well over $400 billion was spent over a 5-year period. No new income streams were created. No attempts were made at any form of diversification. Also, you recall the $14 billion disappeared from the National Gas Company's account. And to round it off, Trinidad and Tobago lost almost $20 billion in revenue as oil prices plunged to below 50 US per barrel in 2015. My brothers and sisters, that was the state of the economy we, the PNM, inherited in September 2015. It was a nation in crisis. But I can stand here proud this evening and state that we are a real government. We faced our new reality, manos manos. We are about solving the country's problems one by one. We are not about old talk. We were voted in to deal with the myriad of problems confronting our country. And this we are doing, and this has become our mandate. Ladies and gentlemen, let us examine the progress we have made over the last 3 years. Let's take a look at the economy. I recall back in 2015, the then governor of the central bank approached the Minister of Finance and announced that Trinidad and Tobago only had 3 days of cash left in the government's current account at the central bank to run the country. Apparently, he was oblivious to this information prior to September the 7th, 2015. My brothers and sisters, through sheer prudence and stringent financial management, this government was able to reprioritize its expenditure to reach a projected sum of $50 billion in expenditure in 2018, down from $63 billion in 2015. What we did as a responsible government was to change the paradigm and place the economy on a sustainable growth path.
Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming the captain of the PNM ship, the political leader of the People's National Movement, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Keith Rowley. Welcome, Dr. Rowley, to the city of Port of Spain, to the City Hall. We welcome our political leader, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very kindly. And now, the MP for Port of Spain South and the Minister of Public Administration will continue her discourse.
What we did as a responsible government was to change the paradigm and place the economy on a sustainable growth path. The Prime Minister is on record by saying that you cannot get more out of less. So if our revenues have been reduced, then as a government, we needed to adjust our expenditure to bring it in line with the reduced revenue. All this was done in the efforts of stabilizing the economy, and it was done with minimal discomfort. Things are tight, but we are able to retain our workforce as far as possible. This government did not have to go to the IMF for stabilization package. As a government, we made our own adjustments for our citizens rather than to leave it for the IMF to do it for us. Our two neighbors, Jamaica and Barbados, were not so fortunate. So my brothers and sisters, from a cover of only 3 days in 2015 to achieving stability and a projected economic growth of 1.9% in 2018 is quite a tremendous task. With respect to the social benefits, brothers and sisters, despite the economic adjustment over the last 3 years, your government was able to maintain our social safety net. Over the 3 years, this government has never reduced any of the many grants and benefits being enjoyed by citizens. Instead, in the 2019 budget, there were increases in disability grant, which will cost this government $78 million annually. Public assistance grant increased by $41.4 million. Increasing the value of food cards will cost $29.2 million. There's a cap on senior citizens' pension, $194 million. And you still could access all the various grants at the Ministry of Social Development, education grant, rental assistance, electrical house wiring, household grant, minor house repairs, sanitary plumbing, disaster relief, special child grant, funeral grant, clothing grant. I'm getting exhausted. My brothers and sisters, all of these benefits remain intact and accessible to the most vulnerable and needy amongst us. By retaining this level of benefits and increasing some of the allocation, demonstrate the caring approach this government has adopted towards our most vulnerable citizens. With respect to the ferry boats, another burning issue, we confront our problems one by one. We are able to resolve them in the interests of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. One such nagging problem was the Sea Bridge issue. After much scrutiny and criticisms, the Sea Bridge now has 2 working ferries, the Trinidad and Tobago Spirit and the Galleon's Passage. Also 1 cargo vessel operating, the Cabo Star. And despite our financial situation, we are here to solve issues, not old talk, and not to create more confusion. This government has ordered 2 new ferries to be delivered in the next 2 to 3 years for that sea bridge. Currently, the Minister of Works has informed that his ministry is assessing a 3rd ferry for the sea bridge until the 2 new ones become available. That is your government working for you and resolving issues, not creating chaos and bacchanal. And staying in Tobago, Tobago would also benefit from the construction of a marina in Cano Bay. This facility would be utilized for the berthing of yachts during the hurricane season. And this would certainly have a spin-off effect. That is the creation of employment opportunities. This government recognizes that yachting is an important tourism niche in Tobago, and hence the establishment of this marina would contribute to the development of the yachting sector. And just recently, I believe it was just last Monday, there was an expansion of the power generating plant in Tobago, which gives an additional 20 megawatts of electricity. And this would help with the power outages on the island. It will also bring the capacity to almost 100 megawatts and certainly make the island much more business friendly. Staying again in Tobago, the Sandals and Beach Resort would be built at Boko Golden Grove. There'll be approximately 1,000 rooms and up to 2,000 permanent employees. The economic impact will be substantial. Again, that is your government working for you. One of the major issues also which this PNM government faced in 2015 was the issue of Petrotrin. After almost 2.5 years of assessment and evaluation, there was no doubt that the business model existing at Petrotrin had become obsolete and uncompetitive. This was not an overnight decision, brothers and sisters, nor was it a hasty one. As I indicated before, this was one of the critical problems we met, and we had to resolve it in the best interests of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. For Petrotrin to continue in its present state would have required an immediate cash injection of some $25 billion. And the accumulation of losses would have continued on an annual basis to the tune of $2 billion. This could not have been sustained by the taxpayers of Trinidad and Tobago. And for your information, for those naysayers outside there, Petrotrin, we are not closing down Petrotrin. As a matter of fact, it's alive and well, and it's now called the Trinidad Petroleum Holding Company. With a new business model in place, Petrotrin can become a leader in the local energy sector. But to achieve this, the government had to do 3 things. 1, closure of the refinery. 2, the exploration and production activity would be pursued. That is, we'll have to increase our oil production, currently from its state of 40,000 barrels per day to 60,000 barrels. And this, of course, would mean an increase in our foreign exchange. And the third decision we had to take is that the petroleum-based products produced by the refinery will now be imported through the establishment of a terminaling business unit. And in turn, this unit would distribute these products to local and regional markets. And we continue with looking at diversification, not just talking about it. Just recently in September, the government of Trinidad and Tobago and China Harbor Engineering Company Limited signed an agreement for the construction of a dry docking facility in Lebre. This will provide job opportunities for skilled workers. The business activity will grow in that area. It is estimated that 13,000 vessels traverse the Panama Canal annually. So Trinidad and Tobago, because of its location, could benefit from this maritime traffic. And it is estimated that some 5,000 jobs will be created. Again, this is not old talk. This is your government working for you. with respect to hospitals, and despite our financial problems, what we have to do is to deliver quality public health care services to our citizens. And this must be consistent with international standards. We are now pursuing an extensive construction program to expand and upgrade our primary and secondary health institutions. Point Fortin Hospital, at a cost of some $1 billion, to be operationalized by September 2019, and that will produce 116 beds. The Arima Hospital, at a cost of some $1.2 billion, to be completed by July 2019, and that will produce 150 beds. The Port of Spain General Hospital, the Central Block, will be redeveloped, and upon completion would provide some 540 beds at a cost of $1.7 billion. The Sandra Gandhi Hospital, we will begin construction in 2019, and that will produce 100 beds. That is a government working for you. That's the progress we are making. With respect to our infrastructural development, our highways, Point Fortin Highway, 12 contractual packages were offered. 8 of these were awarded, with 3 already completed. 4 more packages are being evaluated as we speak. The completion date for the Point Fortin Highway is set to be on or before the year 2020. The Valencia to Toco Highway, currently the evaluation of contracts to be awarded is being undertaken with a view to a startup date for this highway of December 2018, just a week or 2 away. And the Komuto to Manzanilla Highway, work is in progress. Ladies and gentlemen, if Trinidad and Tobago is to maintain its leadership role in the Caribbean and impact the rest of the globe, we must build and maintain a robust economy. We must be cognizant of the fact that this government sought to stabilize our economy after the reckless, misguided, and crazy spending of those on the other side who wrecked, violated, and plundered our economic fortunes between 2010 to 2015. Your government will continue to implement economic measures that would bring both short and long-term benefits to all. We are concerned about Generation Next and the legacy that we will leave. In this light, the PNM government, led by a strong and uncompromising PM, and ask me, I know that, has taken some tough but necessary decisions that would redound to the broader benefit of our society. The Petrotrin issue is a clear example of doing what must be done for the short and long-term economic stability of our nation. As I close, my brothers and sisters, let me state that we, the PNM, have always taken decisions which are in the best interests of our citizens. Even when we were in opposition between 2010 to 2015, as opposition chief back then, we supported 92% of the bills which they brought to the House. We never played politics with the serious issues. We are a serious and real government. So as we enter Parliament tomorrow, we do so as true patriots of the soil. And we will do what is right. And in the end, I am sure, when all is said and done, we can say with one voice, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM. And we shall
Minister of Public Administration, the resilient Marlene McDonald, prudence and stringent financial management, but with minimal discomfort. We confront our problems one by one and get them solved. And Marlene knows that. Ladies and gentlemen, we heard Ms. McDonald say we are dealing with each issue manos manos. One person who deals with each issue manos manos is none other than the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago. Faris Al-Rawi, who is also the Member of Parliament for San Fernando West, has shown us that he is a no-nonsense man who knows what he is about. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, he will deal with an issue that you must listen very attentively to. So, Ms. Ward, please listen attentively. Nian, listen very attentively. And the Member of Parliament for Laventille East Morva, I know he will listen attentively. So, ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming to the podium our Member of Parliament for San Fernando West, the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago, Honorable Faris Al-Rawi.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi alaikum. Ram Nam Sitaram. I bring you greetings in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Ladies and gentlemen of the PNM, starting with the Honorable Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley, the Honorable Mayor of the city of Port of Spain, the first citizen here, distinguished members of Cabinet, distinguished members of Parliament, Honorable Senators, members of our PNM family, members of the Media Corps, listening Trinidad and Tobago, paying attention tonight. I come to you on a serious matter, and I intend to be very straightforward. We have just heard an excellent presentation coming from Marlene McDonald. She spoke to things that are not really carried, but in fact have been done. She spoke to the work across the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago, where this government, having reduced costs, having eliminated the largest of expenditure which was unexplained, has managed to carry out the people's work. The newspapers of our country, the talking heads, the fake news purveyors, don't want you to focus on that. They preach doom, they preach gloom. Even though right around us in Trinidad and Tobago progress exists, landmark projects are being carried out that have never been carried out. Diversification of a kind that you have only heard about, you are now seeing. But God forbid that that story will be told. You see, having come through a very tough economic position, making hard decisions, the UNC believes that all they need to do is waste a little bit more time, drown you in negativity, preach fake news, invent maps that don't exist, spread news left, right, and center, because what they're trying to do is to buy time. And the best way to buy time is to make sure that you interrupt things, including legislation, that could make a difference in our country. So let's start quickly putting the pieces together. The largest issue facing Trinidad and Tobago after crime, after the appointment of a commissioner of police who finally says, the buck stops with me, after that issue of crime, it's corruption. Corruption takes food off your plate. Corruption does not allow you to buy medicine, to receive medical treatment, to have your roads fixed, your potholes fixed. Your children lead a better standard on public service transportation, have a safe city, have cameras everywhere. Corruption is the cancer that holds our country back. And our government entered into a very deliberate plan that said, listen, the manner in which the battle against crime and corruption has been going in our country, prior to this government, every single government before us just did a few things. Raise the offense for kidnapping, raise the fine for gun possession, raise the fine for drug trafficking, increase the penalty in terms of number of years. That's effectively what the laws of Trinidad and Tobago for years were dealt with. Sunset clause, who get in bail, who not get in bail. You understand what I'm saying? We came in and we said, we're going to tackle two things, crime and corruption, in a very different way. We said to the country, we're going to make improvements to our criminal justice system. We're going to speed up the movement of courts by giving us more judges, more courts, specialist divisions, rules of court, masters of court, judge-only trials, plea bargaining. We're going to take 102,000 cases out of the magistrates' court that are clogging up the system in traffic violations and offenses. We're going to make crimes summary crimes. We're going to merge the jurisdiction of the criminal court by making judges able to do magistrates' work and vice versa. You know what has happened? We, this government, have opened new courts. We have implemented rules for the first time. We have dealt with over 400 prisoners in fast-track maximum sentences. We've increased the judicial complement by 77%. That's phase one. Well at work, achieved and being achieved. Phase two resides in work, including that in Parliament tomorrow. Because we said we are bringing a package of laws to treat with corruption in a way that nobody else has. Those laws are a package of laws. And one of those laws is the Income Tax Amendment Act, the bill to amend the Income Tax Act. You see, ladies and gentlemen, it's true we have some international obligations. It's true that Trinidad and Tobago has to comply with 3 international things. Number 1, the Financial Action Task Force. Number 2, the Global Forum. Number 3, FATCA. And in treating with those international obligations, we are obliged to carry out the work of governing Trinidad and Tobago continuously. You see, the UNC as a government went to the Financial Action Task Force, told the world, the 190 members of that group, we are going to be the first country to be assessed in mutual evaluation in 4th round. Anand Ramlogan committed us to that. January 2015 came, they assessed us and they said we failed the vast majority of items. They gave us a list of laws that we needed to look at. And more particularly, they said you not only need to have the law, but you need to have the proof that the law is working. That's Financial Action Task Force. In the Financial Action Task Force, they said you not only have to pass some laws, but you have to do it in a time frame. And the time frame is that you every quarter twice a year at the Financial Action Task Force and twice a year at the Caribbean version. You have to attend before them and say, I'm going to do this, this, this. Now the UNC knows this, because they committed us to that. And the deadline for the amendment of the income tax bill has to be communicated to the Financial Action Task Force tomorrow, November 30th, 2018. This is not new news. This was the subject of umpteen press conferences and parliamentary statements and speeches by all of us. There's another one that I mentioned a while ago. That's called the Global Forum. The Global Forum is an international group of 154 countries. The UNC found it fit in 2010 to put us under peer review. In 2011, on the 4th of October, Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar said, go and sign up for the Global Forum. They signed up. They like trip. Larry Hawaii gets on a plane. He goes to Berlin. He finds himself on a holiday. He gives high-level commitment. 2011, 2014, he finds himself there. October 28, 29. Fancy thing. Trinidad and Tobago are going to pass law. We are going to exchange information. We're going to amend the laws. They come back home. Kamla Persad-Bissessar says, no, let's put it in 2 cabinet notes that we're going to amend the law and we're going to implement the Global Forum standards. 2 cabinet notes. In doing that, they committed this country to signing and operating 13 versions of FATCA. So you remember in FATCA, we had to sign up with the United States of America on an intergovernmental agreement. We had to agree to exchange information between the Board of Inland Revenue and the Inland Revenue Authority in the United States, the IRS. That was big drama. They're not passing FATCA. We went to Parliament. They're not passing it. They want joint select committee. They shift the goalposts. They say no sharing of information. Eventually, in 2017, we passed FATCA. Global Forum requires 13 versions of FATCA. So 2 years ago, I warned the country that Global Forum was coming. I reminded of what I just told you, and I called it FATCA on steroids. That's what I called it, to show you that it was something that was much larger than FATCA. The UNC makes an allegation that this government, what have they done? Why have they waited so long? Let me tell you what we did. We went to the Global Forum. We said to them, we understand that we did not do the 13 treaties. Can we do it in a faster way? They said, yes. You have a fast-track process that you could use. You could sign on to a multilateral treaty, and that will allow you to exchange information with everybody who signed that treaty. So you don't need to go and amend 13 agreements and bring them back home. We said, fantastic. We sat down with them. We drafted 3 pieces of law, which they helped us draft. The first one is the Income Tax Act, the amendment bill. The second one is called the Multilateral Convention legislation. And the third one is called the Tax Information Exchange legislation. The Tax Information Exchange legislation is like the FATCA. The Multilateral Treaty legislation is very complicated. I'm going to come to that in a second. And the Income Tax Amendment is very simple. The Global Forum came to Trinidad and Tobago, worked with the government. We asked them to go and talk to the opposition. They went to the opposition and had meetings with them. They sat down and they agreed, okay, to get you out of this Global Forum thing, lay your bills in Parliament. But we want one bill only, which is the Income Tax Amendment Bill, to allow you to sign up to the treaty. Now this treaty, which I told you, the multilateral treaty, it has changed in the course of the last couple of months in particular and year. And the Global Forum has now introduced into that something called special zones. They want us to get rid of free zones. They want us to put in special zones And that's a very complicated issue for a small country like ours. Panama makes its money how? In a free zone. Right? So when you're a small market like us and you're fighting for space, for somebody to tell you just give up a free zone, no. Takes a little time. That bill is over 140 pages long. And they said to us, look, if you pass the income tax amendment bill, we'll allow you to sign the treaty. And therefore, you will not be non-compliant. Ladies and gentlemen, I received from the OECD, that is the group that has the responsibility. It's called the OECD Secretary General's Report to G20. Buenos Aires, Argentina, December 2018, because it's for this 2018 position. The report coming from the Global Forum has all of the 154 countries, and ladies and gentlemen, there is a black line in the table that has one country listed in it, Trinidad and Tobago, non-compliant. It's at page 32, black line, one country out of 154 countries. This is not a secret. We've said this many times before. The UNC knows this. The meeting to report to the Global Forum was held on the 20th to 22nd of this month, last week, in Uruguay. And they give you a 1 week time frame to say what you're doing. So their deadline to know what we are doing is tomorrow. Is tomorrow. What does this bill say? I started off by talking about corruption. I started off telling you about how we intend to tackle crime, because the best way to find crime is not only the guns and the people who are holding them, or the drugs, the excellent work that the Commissioner of Police and Minister of National Security are doing together. If you find the money, you catch a lot more. You catch a lot more. So let's get to the Income Tax Amendment Bill. It's 10 clauses long. This Income Tax Amendment Bill went to the Parliament May 25th, 2018. May, June, July, August, September, October, November 29th is today. Laid in the House, sent to a Joint Select Committee May 28th. Meetings in June, July, August. All I know a fella named Wade Mark. He could talk while paint drying on the wall. You know that fella? Wade Mark decides, I'm tired. I need a vacation. I'm overworked. He and the rest of the UNC senators and members of parliament decided that they will boycott the parliament and not meet July and August. They needed a rest. So, we get to parliament, June, then we get back in September. November, ladies and gentlemen, the 2nd of November, we go to debate the report. We received a minority report. We have this report. We met the income tax bill. We made some amendments. The Global Forum gave us amendments to the bill, but didn't give it to us alone. They gave it to the UNC too. We came to debate the report. We get a little minority report from a little fella named Saddam Hussein. Fellow who said this law applies to Cus case. We get a minority report, and when you look at the thing, the only thing that it says is, go and use the South Africa law. Let a judge tell you if the police could get some information. So the Income Tax Amendment Bill has 10 clauses. The 10 clauses, first clause, the name of the bill. Second clause, you need a 3/5 majority. Third clause, the act means the Income Tax Act. Fourth clause, amend the long title, amend the name of the bill. 4 clauses, nothing. Clause 10, 9, 8, 7 are cut and paste exact replicas from FATCA. Remember, we had a joint select committee on FATCA. We had debate, FATCA come in, FATCA not go in, FATCA there, nothing will happen. So, 10, 9, 8, 7, replica from FATCA. Clause 5 is the existing secrecy provision for Section 4. And Clause 6 is just describing the offenses. So Clause 6 is no big deal. If you breach the law, you have a crime committed, you're going to jail, you're paying a sanction. So Clause 6 is nothing. We left with Clause 5. Clause 5 is the heart of what I started with. Delay. Seeing the writing on the wall. Understanding the criminal justice system is now working in a way that they never thought could ever happen. Litigation in the courts with information, landmark decisions in the Court of Appeal produced in corruption matters in the civil arena which say you're entitled to get information. A landmark decision was had in our courts that say you can get financial information from the banks on people's wrongdoing. Writing on the wall? Right. Knock, knock, as Minister Rambarat says. So let's deal with Clause 6. Clause 5, sorry. Hear this. Clause 5 is very simple. It says, give the Financial Intelligence Unit information. It does not require a 3/5 majority to give the FIU. You know why? Because the FIU is a written law that already allows them the authority to get information, and they're bound by secrecy. Every country around the world allows their FIU to get information. Stick a pin. The FIU last year discovered $22.5 billion in suspicious transactions in this country. You know what that means? People were trying to take money out of Trinidad and Tobago or hide it. The FIU says that that is bank fraud, counterfeit checks. Listen to this. Under the category of fraud and forgery, transactions totaled $13 billion in fraud and forgery, suspicious transactions and activities. Here is one. Fraud and forgery for 2016, $6.5 billion. So you understand why we want the FIU to get this information. How are they going to do the work if they don't have the information? Global Forum says give it to them. FATF says give it to them. FATCA say give it to them. And we in the PNM say give it to them. Not only give it to them, give what we have to them. Meaning, come and check Faris Al-Rawi. Come and check Keith Rowley. I'm going to say who else said give it to them in just a short while. Second one. Hear this one. Big problem. Big problem. They have a fellow named Bo Tiwari. Well, you know him? He was on television the other day. Him. This bill is vague and nebulous. I'm not quite sure. Lacks clarity. One thing I'm sure about is Dr. Tiwari make a smart son. Because Nirad Tiwari, his son, appeared in public the other day, and I asked him a question about the bill. I said, Mr. Tiwari, with the greatest of respect, can I ask you a question? Do you think this bill is vague and nebulous and lacks clarity? You know what his answer was? No. His answer was that it's perfectly clear. And I give him compliments for having a character of his own. I'm sorry to draw the relationship between the two, but I'm just telling you that as the president of AmCham, as the representative for the American Chamber of Commerce, The younger Tiwari thinks the bill is clear. Clause 6, 5-6. The bill is proposing that you can get tax-paying information given to the Trinidad and Tobago police involved investigations of a financial nature for fraud, for offenses under the Proceeds of Crime Act, Anti-Terrorism Act. We, acknowledging that the UNC said, look, let's give a judge the decision to do that. We said, okay, no problems. We will put a judge to supervise that. And in fact, I propose certain amendments that will be, you go to a judge, you make an application, and the judge is going to tell you yes or no. Now, the reason why the bill didn't have the judge the first time is because the international agencies told us no judge. Why? Other countries right here in the Caribbean have no judicial supervision. The police come and they get the information. Right? No problems. Because the Proceeds of Crime Act right now has an application where you could go to a judge under Section 32 of the Proceeds of Crime Act and get a production order, and they'll give you the taxpaying information. The international assessors looked at that and said, that ain't working. Because you have nothing to show for it. Because remember, they're not only looking at whether you have a law, they want to know if the law is working. And we have no cases to show it's working effectively in large numbers. So we said, put in the judge. No problems. We went to the Parliament, 2nd of November. Mrs. Prasad Bisesa disappear as usual. They say they want joint select committee. They say they're not voting. They say all kind of things. We say, all right, sit down with us and talk. We adjourned the debate. We waited 21 days. Up and down writing, Kamla Prasad Bisesa can't find her for love, no money. Right? The Honorable Leader of the Opposition, 12th of November 2018. Right? Again, November 19th. We went back to Parliament on the 23rd of November, last week. You know when we get a letter from the Leader of the Opposition? 1:48 p.m. on that day. Parliament start 1:30. She sends a letter to us, 1:48 p.m. I see them pushing a piece of paper by the Minister of Finance. He passed it to me. I said, but this can't be the letter. This letter was due 6 months ago. In the letter, here it is. We ain't agreeing to nothing. We need this bill to go back and meet two other bills. The two bills I told you about. But I just told you that the two bills, one is 130-something pages plus. It has that big special zone issue about free zones. The other one is the tax information exchange like FATCA. And the Global Forum told us and told them, don't worry with them too. Just do the income tax amendment and you could sign the treaty. Taking you out of that one line of non-compliance. We go through the committee stage and Kamla Prasad Bisesa says to us, joint select, joint select, joint select. We say, okay, we're going to do a special select committee. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who watch the Parliament and want a little clarification, after you do the debate, you take the bill and you put it into the committee of the whole of the Parliament. 41 people sitting down in that Parliament in the House. And those 41 people get to examine every line, every bit of information concerning every single clause in the Parliament. And the rules are you're supposed to submit your amendments into writing. So, May 25th, 2018, November 2nd, and November 23rd, not a scrap of writing comes from Kamla Prasad Bisesa, SC, MP. I add PP, because she will not put her position in writing so that you could know what she's actually saying. And what happened next? We came to the point of saying, Okay, you want a committee, you don't want the 41 people in this house to decide it, you only want a few people, because there's only 6 people in a special select committee, or 12 people in a joint select committee, where you bring in the senator. Mrs. Prasad Bisesa said, no, I need a committee. We stopped. We said we will do a committee. Ladies and gentlemen, so we gave her the judge supervision. We said to her, okay, let's go to the committee. Guess what? Goalpost change again. I ain't coming no committee now. Because I, Kamla Prasad Bisesa, need to have a senator there. Let's line up the UNC senators. Wade Mark, Khadija Amin, Obika, Anita Haynes, Saddam Hussein, Gerald Ramdeen. So those 6 people, one of them is so critically important that they will not come to a committee. Mind you, they have members in the house, you know. Munilal have a law degree, he's a lawyer. Prakash have a law degree, he's a lawyer. Kamla is senior counsel. Ganga Singh is a lawyer. Vidya Gopi Singh is a lawyer. 5 lawyers. Let me tell you, Ganga Singh acted as Attorney General in this country. Kamla Prasad Bisesa is a past Attorney General of this country. Munilal acted as Attorney General in this country. Prakash Ramada acted as Attorney General in this country and was the chairman of the Law Revision Committee, established to draft the laws that come to Parliament. Kamla ain't happy with none of them. Saddam Hussein, Koskes man, has to come and sit on the committee. So let me tell you what we did. We went to Parliament. We had to party by ourselves because they refused to come. So we decided, you know what? We're going to call a public sitting. Who came to the public sitting? The Bankers Association of Trinidad and Tobago. All the bankers in Trinidad and Tobago had an association. They came. The American Chamber of Commerce, the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Commerce, the European Ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago, the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Financial Intelligence Branch, which is the division of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, the Board of Inland Revenue, the specialist from the Ministry of Finance that sits with Global Forum, the Deputy Permanent Secretary, the representatives coming from the FIU and a committee called NAMLAC. NAMLAC is this committee which includes Director of Public Prosecutions, law enforcement agencies. All of these people come. We receive commentary from Euro Chamber because there's a European Chamber. Every single representative and person that spoke publicly, and I'm talking only publicly because I won't go into any report, everybody to a man and to a woman said they have no problems with the bill. We went through clause by clause, issue by issue. Everybody has no problem with the bill except Kamla Prasad Bisesa. Question. I wonder why. I really wonder why. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the laws that articulate with this and that we consider are important, here are the laws. Proceeds of Crime Act. You know what that act is? That is the piece of law. Sections 44 and 45 of that law have something called money laundering. You know what money laundering is? The evidence of money laundering is to be found in the $22.5 billion that the FIU told you they found as suspicious activities and transactions. Proceeds of Crime Act. The Securities Act for the trading of shares. Only remember the IPO scandal in FCB? And Certain people run away from that issue. What do you think the Securities Act treats with, ladies and gentlemen? The Insurance Act. All you hear about CLICO busing, CLF, taxpayers, DPP has a report. You hear about the Integrity in Public Life Act? How about the Prevention of Corruption legislation? Misbehavior in public office. Ladies and gentlemen, anything that treats with financial issues crosses all of those laws that I've just mentioned to you. They deal with the core concepts of fraud, dishonesty, and corruption. And if you reached a place where after 6 months, the UNC can't tell you up to now, not only what they think their problem is, but what the prescription is, what will make them happy to solve it. If after 6 months, they can't tell you. If after 6 months from a joint select committee, they tell you they want a joint select committee, they get the committee, but they don't turn up. Ask yourselves, why? Does it have something to do with the Commissioner of Police saying he's about to reorganize, as he announced, a financial investigation division in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service? Does it have to do with something by the fact that the court system has been reformed in a way that no other government did? Does it have to do with the other laws that are about to come to the Parliament? Ladies and gentlemen, the consequences of not passing this law are very clear. They were put out into the public by all of the stakeholders who came forward. Here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow will come. The sky won't fall immediately tomorrow, you know. The Financial Action Task Force and the Global Forum say to you, listen, you're not playing in the game. Keep your sovereignty. Talk to yourself. You can't do no business with us. And this ain't no highfalutin business for rich people bill, you know. You know what this is? Your food. What's our food importation bill? $3.3 billion roughly, 2.7 billion. All of your food from the groceries. Listen, we think Doubles is Trinidad and Tobago food, right? Yeah, you know where the ingredients for Doubles coming from? China and Korea. Doubles is not local food, you know, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't have the money to buy the chana and the flour and the oil, you have no Doubles to eat. So that's food. When you go to the medicine and you go to the hospital and you go for your heart medication, your diabetes, you go for your child to get treatment, largely for free in Trinidad and Tobago. Where in Trinidad and Tobago they're making medicine? Where? Where in Trinidad and Tobago are they making cancer treatment drugs, diabetes control, pressure and heart medication? Where? Western Union, money transfer. When you have your family abroad and they want to send you a little money because they're working hard in a foreign country, well, how are you sending that money if they close off your banking relationship? You see, Scotiabank called this once death by 1,000 cuts. Anya Schnur, who was the head of Scotiabank, called it death by 1,000 cuts. Ladies and gentlemen, she said it in the FATCA debate. It's the same thing here now. So Kamala will say tomorrow whatever she says, but when she says it, don't expect midnight, country shut down. But bit by bit, as your transactions start to take weeks, months, or not at all to happen through, and you can't get medicine, and you can't get food, and you can't eat Doubles, and you can't get money from your relatives, you can't pay for your children outside. Go where she living. somebody says. I wouldn't encourage that. What I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, is be prepared. You see, you have a political leader, a prime minister that don't make joke. You have a government that don't make joke. Understand the game. The game is stretch them. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to wrap up quick, but let me say this. I take certain issues close to heart. One of the personal commitments that I had and the Prime Minister allowed me to push forward, and my cabinet colleagues, I wanted to abolish child marriage. The government agreed, and the government said we're going to abolish child marriage. My colleagues said it is abhorrent for a 12-year-old girl to be marrying a 55-year-old man, as has happened in this country. And we have the marriage certificate to prove it. My colleagues in the PNM said enough is enough. What the UNC said? No. We had to remove the special majority clause from the bill, and they say I'm a strategic attorney general. And they castigated me and the government for that. So ladies and gentlemen, if they will play the fool about child marriage, what do you expect them to do when you have a lot to answer for? Because the days to explain your wealth and the days to have the inland revenue have information that could assist the taxpayers in recovering their money via the police, not by any government. The government does not have the power to charge people. You see, those days are potentially too close for them. So ladies and gentlemen, the PNM has 23 votes that will be present in the House of Representatives tomorrow. The UNC has the key to delivering this result, and I want PNM voices, as I know they are capable of saying, shouting, chiming, agreeing, to join with the Bankers Association, the Financial Intelligence Unit, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, the American Chamber of Commerce, the Bankers Association in their other forms, in their individual entities, the DPP, the Central Bank, the Securities Exchange Commission, the Board of Inland Revenue, the 190 countries in FATF, the 154 countries in the Global Forum. Those voices are more than 2 members in a joint select committee and 1 senator from that bench of 6. They can't all be wrong. I thank you for paying attention to serious business. This is not Faris Al-Rawi, Dr. Keith Rowley, Fitzgerald Hines business. This is the business of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. We will do our part. We will continue to fight. We will do the work. We will be ready every time. Stand up and let your voices be heard, and I thank you.
Exactly what I said, ladies and gentlemen. He deals with the issues manos. That is a real Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago. And as he said, ladies and gentlemen, every person has no problem with this bill except Kamla Persad Bissessar. And we wonder why. And our Attorney General also told us that whether love or money was offered, nothing was happening. But maybe they should have offered something else. Maybe they should have offered something else. The goose is loose, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe they should have offered something else. But ladies and gentlemen, we must understand where we are in Trinidad and Tobago. I repeat that the only political party that acts in the interests of this country at all times, no matter the consequences, is the People's National Movement. And ladies and gentlemen, throughout our history, we have had political leaders and prime ministers who have had to take hard decisions. But when they took those decisions, it redounded to the interests of all the people. There was never a selfish moment in the PNM's administration of this country. Ladies and gentlemen, one political leader who is now at the helm of the PNM is Keith Rowley. And ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Rowley has told us that no matter what, he is acting in the interests of this country. He will take the harsh decisions, but do it in such a way that we are not traumatized. But the decisions must be taken because it redounds to the benefit of all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a real political leader. We have brought back with Keith Rowley decency to the office of the Prime Minister. We have returned the stature of Trinidad and Tobago in CARICOM and in the world, because our stature was moving slowly downhill. Since the advent of Keith Rowley as Prime Minister, Trinidad and Tobago's position is moving up. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a man who has country at heart, and the destiny of Trinidad and Tobago lies in his hands and in the hands of your PNM government. Join me, therefore, in welcoming to the podium the captain of the PNM ship, the political leader of the People's National Movement, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Keith Christopher Rowley.
This one going on further, please. This one going on further, please.
Thank you very much. The lady, Vice Chairman of the PNM and Chairman of this evening's proceedings. Your Worship, the Mayor of our capital city, Port of Spain, thank you very much for allowing us to use your very comfortable city hall. Members of the Cabinet, members of Parliament, members of the various corporations, members of the national community, welcome to the city of Port of Spain. Tonight, I'm so pleased to see so many of you at short notice coming out to be educated on the state of your affairs. And I'm also pleased to welcome to this event tonight the tens of thousands of persons who are at home, either listening or watching on their television, because we are communicating with the national community by way of these media. And thank you very much, members of the media, for taking our positions to the rest of the national community. Ladies and gentlemen, today, or should I say tonight, is a night I want you to note. This is a very special and very different meeting. I want you to note the date, and I want you to note what happened here. You would have heard from my two previous speakers, my colleague, Member of Parliament for Port of Spain South, in whose constituency we are tonight. Thank you very much for hosting us in Port of Spain South. And you would have heard from the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago. Tonight, we are here in what is a PNM meeting. But I want you to see us not as PNM political officers here in a political meeting. We are here as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago to alert you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, as to what is happening to you with your business in Trinidad and Tobago. This is a business meeting of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Very recently, I think 2 Sundays ago, I addressed the PNM's annual convention in Tobago. And during my address, I made reference to a problem that exists in this country which must be attended to if we are to make any significant progress. I brought for you tonight a couple paragraphs of that address because I want to tell the people in the PNM and in Trinidad and Tobago what is happening to us. This country is just too corrupt. And too many people are suffering as a result of the corruption in Trinidad and Tobago. Let me explain to you. Yesterday, the select committee of the House, a select committee means a committee of one House. The 41 members of us in the lower house, a select committee met, and a number of persons came before that committee to give testimony and to be witnesses to what was going on there and to contribute. The director of the Financial Intelligence Unit, which is a department that was created by Parliament, by the unanimous support of all members of Parliament of the lower and upper house. We didn't always have an FIU. But because there was seen to be the need to treat with corrupt practice on the part of an idea, say, a minority of people who are conducting criminal conduct to the detriment of the society, the Parliament created a Financial Intelligence Unit paid for by you, the taxpayers. The director came yesterday and she made a very, very important statement in talking to the parliamentarians. She said, money laundering is a crime. Yes. But a crime is committed before to allow money laundering to take place. Because if there is no crime to create the money to launder, then there's no money laundering. But if you are acknowledging money laundering, you are in fact to pay attention to what created the money to be laundered. So some big crime happened before for some people to get money illegally, criminally. And then they try to launder it, to make it clean, to make it appear as though it wasn't from a crime, that it was from law-abiding activity. I want the country to understand that. Because you see, that officer who made that observation as head of the FIU, as part of her duty, had cause to submit to the Parliament, which is required by law, the state of affairs in Trinidad and Tobago with respect to money laundering. And remember I told you, for money laundering to be taking place, some element of criminal conduct had to take place for somebody to get the money. And the FIU receives reports from all the operational agencies in the country, insurance companies, banks, and so on, all them. If they see a transaction that looks suspicious or is suspicious, they are required by law to report it to the FIU. The FIU laid a report on January 18, 2018. January 2018, the last report of the FIU came to the Parliament. It covered the period October 2016 to September 2017, so the last year. And listen to what the report contains. Money laundering. Transactions that were completed but were deemed to be suspicious, $664 million. Transactions which were completed under fraud and forgery, $86 million. Attempts which were stopped, $13 billion. Suspicious activity, just generally suspicious. And there's a breakdown of all the various kinds of things that cause suspicion to be attached to those activities, which were completed, $7 billion. Those that were attempted but not completed, $103 million. Tax evasion, $163 million completed transactions deemed to be suspicious. Corruption, including misbehavior in public office. That means some public officer was involved. $132 million completed. When you add up all the transactions that attracted the attention of the Financial Intelligence Unit, those which were completed and deemed to be suspicious and require criminal examination, $8.4 billion. Those that were attempted but obstructed and stopped, $13.6 billion. For a total of $22 billion of transactions that attracted the attention of the Financial Intelligence Unit. And rest assured, not all criminal transactions attracted their attention. So this is the minimum quantum. Ladies and gentlemen, we recently got back a huge amount of assets from the CLICO transaction. Remember that? When we created the National Investment Fund, we put a chunk of Angostura, a chunk of Republic Bank, a chunk of Ritco, a chunk of what, to get $4 billion. All of that to get $4 billion backed by $8 billion of assets. But our FIU could be reporting to the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago that they had before them $22 billion of transactions in 1 year. That is September 2016 to, that is October 2016 to September 2017. That is the state of affairs in Trinidad and Tobago. And we are not the only ones who know that. The Attorney General just spoke to you in the context of what the international community require of us. So whether we want to believe it or not believe it, whether we want to ignore it as this has been ignored because this had been laying in the parliaments in January, and those who are telling you that they so want to defend you, that they will shed their blood for you, and they wouldn't put a vote to comply with Global Forum tomorrow, they had no interest in this. It has been lying in the parliaments in January, and the last thing they want is anybody talking about this. So this could happen in the country. It doesn't attract their attention at all. But when it's time to vote to protect the country's interests, they're telling you, man, we're not going to vote if Angel Gabriel comes down and changes wings. So this is the state of affairs. Our GDP is $160 billion. And in that economy of $160 billion, you have 20-odd billion circulating as criminal conduct on the part of persons handling money in this country. The national budget for that year, same year when $22 billion is criminal conduct, the national budget is $50 billion. So in a situation where a national budget is $50 billion, your FIU is reporting interest in $20 billion. This is a corrupt society. And money laundering and corruption is conduct of criminals. Anybody involved in that is a criminal guilty of a felony if they're found guilty in a court of law. So, I'll come back to that. You see, we are not alone in this situation. So let us not feel too bad about it. The world is observed by the various agencies. And this problem of money laundering and corruption around financial transactions has been deemed to be a multi-trillion business in the world. And therefore, the countries of the world got together and said, we have to deal with this, and we will deal with it. And the way they're going to deal with it is to set standards for all countries if those countries are to take part in the international banking community. About a year and a half ago, I think it was, when Mr. Cameron was the Prime Minister of England, I went to Malta. And Mr. Cameron was driving this matter I just raised with you. Mr. Cameron, the British Prime Minister, was driving this matter at the international level. When we left Malta, he asked for a meeting in London a few weeks later so that this matter could be pushed towards the United Nations, so that a position could be taken for all the world's countries to sign on to. And I was invited to that meeting. I was the only Caribbean leader who was invited to that meeting in London. It involved Nigeria was there, Singapore, Malaysia, the United States, the World Bank, and so on. And the spokesperson for the United States was Secretary John Kerry. And he said that what we are aiming to do is to create a situation of no safe haven, meaning that there must be no country in the world where criminals could hide the proceeds of their criminal conduct. A meeting was supposed to come up in September. Mr. Cameron went and called some referendum which Brexit threw him out of office, and the meeting never took place at the UN. But the other arrangements are still in force. You remember we went through the FATCA carryings on, and our opposition didn't want to vote for it until the public got involved, and then they voted for it, and we got compliance with FATCA. Global Forum is here, and we are going through the same situation. It's an identical situation. It's an identical situation. FATCA applied to the American banking system. Global Forum applies to all the other banks, mainly the European banks in particular. You could say, like Botiwari, that it's an affront to our sovereignty and we're not doing it, but then you'll play by yourself. Your banks will not be allowed to participate in the banking community of the rest of the world. That is what Kamala Persad-Bissessar and Botiwari telling you. That they so want to protect your, what do you call it? Constitutional rights. That they will not vote in support of this, and then you will then bank by yourself. Then you'll play by yourself. And then you'll conduct your own economy. We who are a nation trading in the world economy, we are encouraging our banks to grow. Only this week, Republic Bank has spread its wings across the Caribbean by buying out Scotia Bank. That is good for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. They're telling you, no, they're protecting you. Well, let me say tonight, from this platform, they're not protecting you at all. They are putting you at risk unnecessarily. You have to ask yourself, just who are they protecting? To want to preserve the status quo, where the FIU could be receiving on an annual basis reports of $21 billion of suspicious transactions carried out by criminals. Just who is the opposition supporting? Tonight I say to you, here in Trinidad and Tobago, they are supporting and defending the criminal element in Trinidad and Tobago. That's what they do. And for those of you who find that is a harsh statement, let me wake you up to our reality. This is a political party which had a government in Trinidad and Tobago which used the cabinet and the parliament to pass Section 34, create a law to allow that law to be used to prevent their friends from appearing in court to do. It was the same group of people led by the same Kamla Prasad Bisesa involving the same set of persons in the opposition who created Section 34. Prakash Yamada was the head of the LRC in the Kamla Prasad Bisesa government where Section 34 was spawned. They came to Parliament. They told us, the opposition, the PNM, that this is about reducing the backlog in the courthouse. And we were glad to support it, and we supported it. Next thing we know, Independence Night, in the dead of night, the rest of the country watching fireworks, they proclaimed Section 34. And up to this day, 16 years later, after criminal conduct, white-collar criminal conduct took place at Piako Airport, there are persons in this country still to appear before a court to account for their conduct. That was done by Kamla Prasad Bisesa and the UNC. I knew exactly where I was standing when I heard that. I was in Point Kumana Community Center when I heard what the government had done. And I called you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, out. I said, meet me in Port of Spain at 2 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon. We are going to the president. And you came in your thousands. And the reason why you came, it was because the then government of Trinidad and Tobago, which is the opposition today, used the cabinet, used the parliament to create that clause in that law, deceive the opposition, and as a result of that, by Monday morning, the miscreants were in front of the court, and they're still there, fighting for freedom. Their colleagues in America have already gone to jail, but Trinidad and Tobago, nothing happened. That is what they're defending. When the extradition should have taken place, the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago, Anand Ramlogan, went to the court and told the judge not to grant the extradition because the trial of those persons were imminent. I have to assume that that statement from the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago would have been taken seriously by the judge in his deliberations. Imminent? That is since 2011. It is now how many years? 7 years, and nothing has changed. So don't you be surprised that people in the opposition today could be taking the position that they are taking now, that they are not voting for this matter tomorrow under the guise of protecting you, when in fact they have already shown you what they are capable of. I want to tell you all something. A contractor was building a water treatment plant in Bitam. That was the last $1 billion from the NGC kitty. The day after the election and the government change, the contractor left this country. The day after, left the project high and dry, $1 billion project, and never come back to this country. That is the contractor who paint off the equipment, paint off his name off the equipment that built the Prime Minister's house. Remember that story? The Attorney General and his team went to court, and I think there's a matter before the court which I will not enter, except to say that the government of Trinidad and Tobago, through its AG's office, has frozen $170 million or thereabouts in the court from that contractor. That is all going on here. And one of the reasons why we do not talk, those of us in the government, why we do not talk much about these legal proceedings that are taking place, is because we are not to seek to influence these matters as the law requires, but also we know that if we keep informing you on a daily basis, that will give them an opportunity to go to the court and say, it is political. The prosecution is political, so we've kept our silence. And many of you are of the view that the government is and has done nothing because we are complying with the requirements of the law. Understand? But then, that was white-collar crime. Because that contract was awarded, it was $400 million more than the low bid. I can tell you that because I prosecuted that matter in the parliament from the opposition bench. And let me tell you all something in case you all forget, because you always forget very quickly in Trinidad and Tobago. I am not now taking this issue because I'm a prime minister and I have an issue to deal with tomorrow in the parliament on your behalf. I'm the only prime minister in the history of the Commonwealth parliamentary system who has been thrown out of the parliament twice for fighting corruption. Rupert Griffith, God rest his soul wherever it is. I am not, I'm just saying, I'm just telling you the fact. I took issue in the parliament when the Attorney General, who had written to the UNC government, telling the government that the Piarco contract was improper, and then just so changed his mind in the parliament and turned around and supported it, that same Piarco airport where people have gone to jail over. And I said in the House that my colleague, the Attorney General, who was on the other side, I was opposition, he was AG. I said he pole vaulted on his principles and changed his mind. Griffith threw me out of the parliament indefinitely. That is a fact. Diego Martin West had no voice in the parliament because I, as MP for Diego Martin West, had the temerity to take issue with that level of white-collar crime at Piarco Airport, which is still the gold standard for corruption in Trinidad and Tobago. It was only when I went to Diego Martin and my constituents were organizing to come into Port of Spain by the thousands that my leader, Patrick Manning, went to Basio Panda and they make some deal and they removed the suspension. Indefinite suspension from the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago for having the gall to confront corruption in the parliament. So if tomorrow opposition members in the parliament vote against that bill and cause this country the harm that it will cause, our parliament has been there before, been there, done that. And then I was in the parliament again as opposition leader this time, when the chairman of the Integrity Commission of all places had an investigation going on with the email gate under Justice Sebastian Vento. The chairman took it upon himself to stop the investigation and to write a letter to Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bisesa, which she used to expel me from the parliament. The deputy chairman of the Integrity Commission resigned over that. And the only time in the history of the Commonwealth where a government moved a motion and expelled the opposition leader was in Trinidad and Tobago under Kamla Prasad Bisesa. In fact, 100 years before, in an Australian parliament, an Australian government attempted to do that and the speaker refused to accept the motion. But in Trinidad and Tobago, 100 years later of settled conditional law, I was expelled from the parliament in that manner. So don't be surprised if our parliament is used tomorrow to advance the UNC political campaign. It was white-collar crime that created live sport. It was the government of Trinidad and Tobago that said they're going to spend $6 million in the August of that year to create activity for young men who are idle. It resulted in a $400 million expenditure and murder, she wrote. Remember that? white collar crime. Section 34 was white collar crime. Let me tell you how it goes. I was telling you about Tobago. We came in and met the estimates for the highway that we're building now to Kumuto. Kumuto took Toko Manzil as part of the highway network that we're getting towards Toko 1. The estimate for the section that is going on there now, the same thing, identical road, identical place, same thing, $547 million. When we went out for tender, came in at $401 million. That's the savings of $146 million. Same project. We didn't change a grain of sand. We extended by a foot. Trip flyover. Contract was awarded. They fought over it. Unfortunately, it was stopped, and we had to start it over. That was going at $412 million. When we went out to tender, without extras, it's being done now for $221 million. A savings of $190 million. So just those two projects alone, because you changed the government, you saved $336 million. The last government was quite happy to have the contractor OAS walk away with all the bonds on the contract that they had abandoned. We came into office, and on your behalf, because you changed the government, we fought them in London, we fought them elsewhere around the world, and we won. And we got back $921 million. That money is being used to pay for the contracts that Ms. McDonald spoke about that are continuing the highway to Point Fortin. When I took over responsibility for the repair of the Red House, the contracts were in line for $886 million. We are very much in line now to complete that project in the next few months, and it's being done for $441 million. A difference of $445 million. If you pass around the Savannah, you'll see Whitehall and the work going on at Whitehall. We're doing that for $28 million less than the original estimates. The president's house that was left untouched for 5 years when we had money, the estimates they were $164 million. We're doing it for $89 million, and it's on time and on track. And I showed the people of Tobago last week, when you add up all of these, just this handful of contracts, six contracts, $1.5 billion less, just by changing the government of Trinidad and Tobago. I want to ask you all here tonight, where was that $1.5 billion going? And who was getting it? And when you find the answer to that, those are the people that are being protected by the UNC when they talk about protecting the people's interests in Trinidad and Tobago. Protecting the criminal element who do that to you, who require the FIU to be formed. And now that the international community is saying to us that we must not stymie the FIU. The FIU must be able to, and the police must be able to go to where the information is, where there is reason to believe that there is criminal conduct. They are saying no. They don't want the police. Police, you know. We agree with them. A judge must have reason to support it. And the police officer who will do it must not be below the rank of superintendent. We still can't pacify them. Not any constable and corporal who want to pin something on you. You go before a judge and you must have the rank of superintendent or above. But if you are pursuing criminal conduct in the financial arena, you must be allowed to go. They say, no, we're protecting that. Who are they protecting? Who in this room is being protected by their action? Huh? And that's what we are facing. We give them everything. In the parliament, there is a battery of regulations that govern the parliament conduct. When a matter goes to one of these smaller committees, whether it's a select committee or a joint select committee, which means that fewer members of the House are required to look at the matter and come back and report to the House, and then the House will accept or not accept what they've said to the House. But the House always has the prerogative to accept or not accept. One of the regulations in the House is that there ought to be no anticipation, and there ought to be no looking back at what has already been done in a debate. It means that you can't come in the debate of tax amendment bill, that is the bill before the House, and take it upon yourself to say that you don't want to deal with this. A bill is outside there somewhere. You want that bill to form part of these proceedings. That is the epitome of anticipation. And the House forbids it because it will create disorder. If the bill before the House is this black pen, then you have to confine yourself to that. You can't say you want pencil and crayon. But they have found themselves in that situation now because you know why? We have given them everything they wanted. But they are trying to contrive a reason for not supporting the bill. When you go to committee, it does not say that you have to have agreement in the committee, because there may be fundamental policy differences between the government and the opposition. So what the committee is required to do, the majority, which is the government side, because the government has more members on the committee, and that shouldn't surprise you, because the government is the majority. You are the government because you are the majority. So the majority will vote in the committee as to what position the majority will take. If the minority feels unhappy with that position taken by the minority, they too are free to put in their own report. It's called a minority report. Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bissessa and her team did just that on this tax amendment bill. So when the reports came to the parliament for debate by the full House, there was a majority report of the PLM and a minority report of the UNC, two written reports. So therefore, the committee's work was over, the reports have come to the House. And before the House is one bill, the tax amendment bill from Joint Select Committee with two reports, majority report, minority report. In the minority report, they said they wanted, the reason why they wrote the minority report and didn't go along with the majority is they wanted a couple of things. One of which was this judicial oversight. We said, no problem, we will grant that. So they got that. There was one other, what was the other part? There was one other, some other minor matter. That was the main thing. That was the crux of it. They wanted that the police couldn't just run at you because, as Saddam Hussein, the spokesperson said, if a police officer make a case against you or a foul thief case, he could go and ask for your tax return. That is how they were selling it. That your privacy of your tax return is now no longer private. Any police officer could go for your taxes once the police has reason to come in your direction. Nothing is further from the truth. Superintendent and above. And we agree that it must have judicial oversight, so a judge must agree that this case is going forward, or this investigation is going forward, and that information is available. So you're protected. When we gave them everything they wanted, they were surprised, because they now lost the reason to vote against it. You know what they said? Send it back to committee. The same committee from which it came with two reports, a majority report and a minority report. In the House, we merged them and gave them all that they want. So now, the reason why they are telling you they're going to vote for it tomorrow is because it's supposed to go back to committee to meet its two friends. There are two bills in committee. Well, let me say something here. Under our system of governance in this country, it is the party that wins the majority of votes that forms the government. And you, the people, would have given that responsibility to the majority to run and determine the business of the government. The opposition is not the government, but they have a serious and important role to play. When the opposition says to the government, we are not going to vote for the bill before the House, you must send the bill back to me 2 other bills that are not before the House. What exactly is happening in Trinidad and Tobago? What exactly is happening here? It is the Attorney General and his team who has been to all the meetings on Global Forum. We as government, we have been there conducting your business while they've been elsewhere doing the opposition obstruction. But we are the government, we have that responsibility. Who do you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, will listen to when we tell you this is what is required to protect your interests? Are you going to listen to Wade Mark or Faris Alwari, your Attorney General? Listen to Moonilal. MPs call for JSC on tax bill. I just told you the tax bill went to a JSC. It came back with the government majority position and the UNC minority position, and we conceded to the minority position, if only to get them to be responsible. Let me quote for you the position of Moonilal. Moonilal said, Trinidad and Tobago has already been blacklisted since December last year. And from a meeting in Uruguay, it was said that Trinidad and Tobago was a small financial sector that will not pose a great problem to the world. Well, we're not concerned about the problem we're going to place to the world, you know. We are concerned about the problem the world will place to us. Because as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, I can tell you already, in this country, ambassadors of foreign countries that have companies that are doing business in Trinidad and Tobago have come to the government to warn us that their companies are telling them that if we don't get our act together and get ourselves out of this situation, they will have difficulty doing business in and with Trinidad and Tobago. We're there already. Moonilal goes on to say, so he knows. The Attorney General has told you the steps that we have to take because they did nothing between 2010 and 2015. We found ourselves as a country, the only country in the world in that grouping out there. As the AG told you, because they didn't do that, we asked to be able to access the treaty, which will allow us, once we get to sign the treaty, we will have the same status as all others who were there before us because we are now on the treaty. They said to us, no, you cannot sign this treaty unless you fix your tax with the tax amendment that you're doing there. The Attorney General told you that. So you have that information from the Attorney General. Moonilal is telling you, no, we blacklisted long time. So whatever we do in Parliament Friday will change nothing. And the opposition leader is telling you, even if we vote for it, it will not prevent us from being blacklisted. Now, who do you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, listen to? The people who created Section 34? The people who SIS run from and with? The people who left the $900 million for OAS? The people who used the cabinet and the parliament to create law so that two people could avoid the court? Are we, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, so stupid and so empty that we don't know when we are being told rain is falling or something else is falling on our head? That's what they think, you know. They think they could tell you that. But let me tell you what it is. Moonilal says that the committee that they wanted, when they demanded committee, shocking as that was, I intervened in the committee stage and I told the Minister of Finance, let it go to committee under one condition. The deadline is November 30th. The committee must report before by November 29th. So we granted committee. They were shocked at that. We're not putting anybody on the committee. So you ask for committee We give you committee. You don't want committee. Because you are hell-bent on not voting for the measure for reasons best known to you, because you want to protect the criminal element in this country who are parading in the financial sector. Those with money to launder, those with money to hide, those with money they can't explain. You want to protect them, but you want a reason to do it. So you don't want committee. And they will tell you the reason why. It is because it's a select committee and not a joint select committee, because they didn't get one person from the Senate on it. Well, let me tell you something. Not putting people on a committee has nothing to do with whether they could put from the Senate or not. Because before, we had Dr. Winston Welch and a handful of experts in this country early in the tenure of this government examine the healthcare system in Trinidad and Tobago to determine what is holding us back in getting better healthcare delivery. The Welsh report, done by widespread consultation across the health sector, right down to this issue. The last issue they dealt with was the question of hospital, government-paid doctors doing private practice. That was the last issue they dealt with. We brought the report to Parliament and we sent it to a joint select committee of Parliament. Up to this day, the committee has not met for 1 hour. You know why? Because an important issue like that, arrived at in that way, they decided that they will not. You want to come over here? The opposition under Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bissessa decided to kill that assignment by simply not appointing anybody to the committee. So there's a joint select committee in the Parliament right now on healthcare delivery, which cannot function because the opposition under Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bissessa decided to kill it by simply not putting anybody on the committee. And that is opposition, irresponsibility, and sabotage, if ever there was any. We had a difficulty with the boat from Tobago. Difficulty, they're every morning, noon, and night. They're on the ferry, the ferry, the ferry, the ferry. Even when we got to the point of having a boat going to Tobago, they were not pleased with that. They go on the boat and they stuff the toilet full of orange and whatever else to block the toilet, to come and talk about the toilet. They left Brian Lara down there for 5 years. They teeth off everything that was nailed down. When we finished it, and the night when we opened the Brian Lara Stadium in grand style down there, they go down there and they took off the clothes and they stuffed jersey down in the toilet. You hear about that story? What they are doing in the Parliament is the same thing, sabotage by parliamentarians, the same way we had sabotage on the boat. And while the person who stuffed the orange on the boat on the way to Tobago, you may think is some little miscreant, and the one who stuffed the jerseys at Brian Lara is somebody who might be a little high up in the social standing in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. Tonight, I tell you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, the opposition is sabotaging this country. For them to tell you that they are going to vote against our accession to Global Forum, so as to prevent our country from being blacklisted, to be expelled from the world banking system, or to have to pay more to those who allow us to continue doing business with them, to bring hardship to poor people in the small way that you know. For some reason only known to them, I call that sabotage. And let me tell you something. Those are the people who said they're going to make this country ungovernable. They couldn't make it ungovernable. They couldn't make it ungovernable by getting you to run behind them with the stupid talk. But they found a way to take action to make it ungovernable because they know exactly what they're doing. It was the UNC that put us, they were the government at the time when the world called for us to access the FACTA route and the Global Forum. So it is not that they don't know, they know. If they didn't know, you could say they're acting out of ignorance. But it is because they know that the outcome is going to be chaos. Why they're doing that? They know if we do not meet the deadline set in time for the January meeting, that we will find ourselves in serious difficulty, and our banking sector, the strongest area of our economy is our banking sector. It is one of the pillars, it's the backbone of our economy. They know if they so attack the banking sector would indeed face serious difficulty and it would create economic collapse. It's the economy they want to collapse. When Mr. Imbert went there last budget debate and announced that we had 1.9% growth, they almost got diarrhea. Because that is the last thing they wanted to hear. The last thing they wanted to hear is that the police is fighting crime successfully. They want to be able to say, murder here, murder there. The shock that almost killed them is when I, as political leader and PNM Prime Minister in this country, got up in the parliament and supported a politician from another political party to be the police commissioner in this country. They almost died of shock. But we were not selecting anybody to run for a seat or to play politics. We were selecting the best man for the job, and we did so, and we are getting results. They invested all their political whatever in the ferry from Trinidad to Tobago. Well, by that, when the 2 ferries arrive in this country, all Lomotil sell out. And as fast as the police keeps improving, to be better able to protect and serve this society, they have nothing to talk about. So today, what they intend to do is to damage the banking system in Trinidad and Tobago. Because all 18 of them must know that if they take this irresponsible action, that they will damage the banking system in Trinidad and Tobago. They know that. So that is the objective. And they know that if they damage the banking system, they will damage the economy, a fragile economy, which has been in negative all the time. The first time we've seen any semblance of a change in direction was in the last fiscal year. And they don't want that. And of course, when we get into the outcome of that, they'll be up and down calling for elections. They want elections. Because you the people, you so stupid that when the election comes, whenever it comes, you will vote them back into office. I wrote the opposition leader a couple of days ago. Monday? On Monday, I wrote her as one colleague to another. And I said to her, this is a situation that requires your office and my office acting responsibly. I would like to have a private meeting with you on this matter at your convenience. But she replied, she will meet with me, that's Monday. She will meet with me on Thursday at 11:30. On Friday at 11:30, which is tomorrow. And Parliament is due to meet at 1:30. So of course, you know that meeting is a sham. And of course, the big issue is they are not moving from their position. They want the 3 bills. In other words, they don't care what the parliamentary regulation says. They don't care what common sense says. They don't care what you say. They want the 3 bills. Well, ladies and gentlemen, tonight, I want to tell you that they're running true to form. Delay, object, and sabotage. That is what you're facing from your opposition. But I'll tell you one thing. I just told you. I was the only political leader who was thrown out of the parliament twice for attempting to treat with this corruption at washing this country. I'm the only political leader who voted from the opposition for a budget that was brought by the government. Only time the opposition voted for the budget brought by the government. In 2010, I was the leader because I know that my job, whether in the opposition or in government, the job that I have is to serve the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So tomorrow, when the reports come from the committee, which has been visited by all those people that the AG spoke about, all the people who know about this, whether in the private sector or the state sector, from the central bank to the FIU, they all have no problem with it. From AmCham to whoever. The only people in this country who know that something wrong with the bill are the 18 people in the opposition inside the parliament. And unfortunately, they are the only ones who can add the 3 votes that are required. This government has 23 votes. And tonight, I commit every single one of them to supporting that bill in the interest of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. If we don't put it to the vote, the deadline comes tomorrow and goes. We fail. If we put it to the vote and they vote against it, we fail. We shall put it to the vote. And for all those who have a habit of talking about they want the government and the opposition to come together and to, this is not a government and opposition thing. This is a responsibility for the 41 members of the parliament to do what is best for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And anybody you see trying to discuss this matter in the context of the government and the opposition, them is people to watch. We've given them everything they asked for when they thought we wouldn't. And as fast as we change it to give them what they asked for, we give until there is no more to give. The last thing they want was committee. We give them committee, they don't want committee. And of course, they wouldn't come on the committee to take part. And up to now, I saw Botiwari on Faziri program the other morning. Faziri put the question directly to him. What exactly is your problem with the legislation? What do you want? And both fumbly, stumbly, mumbly, bramble, couldn't say. But he managed in that state of mind to say the law lacks clarity and he don't like the way the government behaving. That is why they will not vote for a bill that threatens to destroy the banking system. And let me tell you all something. Our banking system, one of our banks, Republic Bank, is now the leading bank in the region. If it comes from a country that is not, the head office is here in this country, which is a factor pariah, what do you think is going to happen to us? What's going to happen to us? Who is going to want to do business with a bank whose home country is where we are today and can go worse? Anybody who wants to help us to get along would know that we don't want to be in that place. And all they have to do is to do what the people of Oropouche and Chaguanas and Siparia asked them to do. But they're not concerned about that. As far as they're concerned, those votes are fixed. And they could use it to advance their own personal condition if they wish. They know they could do all of this, and the people of those districts will send them back to Parliament. That's what they believe, because those are their votes. Fortunately for us in the PNM, We have no such position in this country that your vote is ours to play the fool with. We earn your vote, we earn your respect, and we serve the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I tell you about the corruption that's running in this country, big and small. The other day we had a flood that covered a large part of the country in the east and northeast. One particular district was severely hit, the Greenvale area, and virtually every house was underwater and all the contents that could have been damaged by water was damaged. And we had in Warren and El Carmen down to St. Helena, that group of people. We did an assessment early, and we took the decision that we will give as much assistance as we could to these unfortunate citizens. I called the Minister of Social Services at daybreak on the Saturday morning on my way when I was going into that area. And I asked her, how much did it cost us to provide assistance to those people from the last flood in the southeast corner when we had a big flood down in that area? And she told me, when the qualified persons were serviced, because not everybody who water come in your yard, or water come in your road, or water below your house, you must get taxpayer money. It is those persons who have been directly affected in a way that money can really help them, and money should be made available. You have to qualify for the assistance. She told me it was just over $12 million. I immediately made a statement, and I instructed the Minister of Finance to make $25 million available. I doubled it because I had seen the extent to which those areas from Kelly up to Greenvale, I realized this was much more than what had happened in the southeast corner and into the Oropouche Basin. We doubled it. And that we said we wouldn't confine it to what it was. We'll just have two tranches. We'll give the households that had no children, 15,000, and the others with children, 20,000. That was to make it easier to administer and to make it more direct and a little more assistance. Immediately, I had reason to caution the Minister of Social Development, watch the behavior of our people. Because they had those who were trying to get more than they qualified for, and some who didn't qualify at all. I did say publicly, because I went to a couple of the press conferences that when we were managing that flood, and I said, well, if the amount, we assess the number of households involved, because we flew over the area, Minister Young went over, flying over the area, we had the other departments, we made a rough assessment as to how many thousands of households were involved, and we had a rough idea. We said if the amount goes beyond 25 million, we might go above it a little bit. The next thing I know, because of the ease with which we were facilitating the claims being made by those who are affected by water, I was told by the Minister of Finance that that program of assistance to those who are affected by the flood is now costing us $84 million. Wow. And the news is not that the amount of assistance that you give as taxpayers, The news is that, oh God, nobody can get nothing and everybody's suffering. By the time I asked the Minister of Social and Family Services about the claims made and how much we have addressed, we discovered it's now $118 million. But in the meantime, the police reach. And the police start picking up those who were thieving the money that was meant for the least of the apostles. Today, I asked the minister, what has been done with respect to the audit? Because right now, the Ministry of Finance is auditing that. And I asked, what has been done with respect to addressing this issue? Because as the outpouring of sympathy grew in the national community, like the stampishness grew equally. I regret to tell you, the Minister of Family Services told me today that when they audited, having dealt with the claims as expeditiously as possible, so as to bring relief as quickly as possible, the public service handling that, right? We discover that the level of fraud in that program was 40%. 40%. And that is now a matter for the Ministry of Finance and the Audit and the police. Because there are people amongst us who have accepted that misconduct of that nature is normal. That's the point I'm making. I made that point at the PNM convention. People are telling their children they don't mind if the government thief in as long as we get in something. That is becoming our society. For heaven's sake, reject that societal norm. And what is worse, the guards who are supposed to guard the gate, they are in the forefront of facilitating the misconduct. Who is going to guard the guards? If your opposition parliamentarian, with their eyes wide open, know exactly what they're doing, by preventing this very simple amendment, they will be preventing law enforcement from pursuing persons who have reason to be pursued. You don't want the police to go after people who are suspected of committing financial crime, because as far as they're concerned, crime is murder, you know. So the police who wants to go after the findings of the FIU, as far as they're concerned, that is not crime. And if you think that is not crime, then you could easily commit it. Like the parents with the child and the pencil. Comes home with a pencil that is not his or hers. And the parents say, get a pencil. Because you've accepted that that is not a crime. And there are those who are telling you now that they will destroy what little progress we've made in the last 3 years in preparation for the next election. That is where we're at. White collar crime is not a badge of honor. Is not smartmanism at work. It is criminal conduct warranting the action of law enforcement. And the reason why the Global Forum is saying to us, you are not going to be allowed to sign that treaty, is because they know that law enforcement in Trinidad and Tobago is impeded by the insufficiency of the laws, because secrecy is working for the criminals, supported by those who were elected by the people to protect the people and who are now a grave danger to the people. Ladies and gentlemen, we in the PNM have done everything that our government is required to do. We brought the bill to the Parliament early, since May. They demanded it goes to a committee. We went to the committee. But that is the trap. Their approach is every bill that comes to the Parliament must go to committee. When it goes to committee, that's when they play themselves. Most of the committees are run by, represented by Wade Mark. I want to remind you all who Wade Mark is. When I was in the opposition, a matter came up in the Parliament by way of a motion. I moved a motion in the Parliament to question some misconduct that had taken place at FCB. And the Minister of Finance of the day, Larry Hawaii, had questions to answer. I didn't go out there and slander Larry Hawaii. I moved a motion in the Parliament so that the facts could be brought to the Parliament and every member of the Parliament could have a say on that motion. I laid out the matter in the Parliament based on the facts available to me. Then it was Larry Hawaii's turn to respond and defend himself. You know what Wade Mark did? The same Wade Mark? No, he did. Wade Mark came to the Parliament as Speaker. Now the Speaker is not supposed to get involved in the debate. That's another parliamentary rule. So a debate is taking place. A member of the House moves a motion. It is for the other side to respond. The Speaker jumped in. He didn't just jump in. He jumped in with a letter. say that the judiciary right here and say that the matter is sub judice. And on that basis, the matter can go on, and Wade Mark ended the debate. Turns out, the letter was a lie, because the judiciary had to jump in and say, we never told Wade Mark nothing. We know nothing about that. But Wade Mark used that ruse, and his authority of the office entered the debate and stopped it. And you never heard from Larry Hawaii about that matter. Except, of course, later on, they went to have an IPO to sell FCB shares. Same bank, same minister. And one hell of a scandal broke out in this country, where the shares of FCB end up in the hands of persons that attracted the attention of the SEC. And somehow I could tell you, in Trinidad and Tobago, in this Barracuda, according to NIPOL, up to this day, this country has not been told what happened with those FCB shares that were improperly handled when they sold those shares under the UNC. What we do know is that the chairman of the FCB was chased out of office to appear somewhere else again, because these bad pennies have a way when they roll them, they just roll them and come back right here. But these are our facts. These are our facts. And it's the same Wade Mark who today, the opposition leader, is saying, unless we make it a select committee to go to bring in senators, for this one senator to come on the committee, they will sink the banking community and the economy and the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Ladies and gentlemen, we can say no more for the moment. We can do no more for the moment. But good times or bad times, we, the PNM, will stand for decency in Trinidad and Tobago, and we'll stand for morality and public affairs. Tomorrow, all 23 members of the PNM will vote in our attempt to satisfy the requirements of the Global Forum. If those requirements are not satisfied, the PNM would have done its part. I thank you all for coming. I thank you all for listening. And I thank you all for putting this country in the hands of the People's National Movement.
Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. We will stand for decency in Trinidad and Tobago. We earn your vote, we earn your respect, and we continue in our belief in the words of our national anthem with boundless faith in our destiny. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much to Marlene McDonald for hosting us and for her presentation this evening. Thank you to our esteemed Attorney General of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And thank you to our Prime Minister, who every single day earns the respect of the people of Trinidad and Tobago and earns the title Honorable Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very kindly to those of you who are here. Thank you very kindly to those of you who listened and those of you who looked at us on the television. Get home safely, and may God continue to bless Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you and good night.
a chosen generation.